Podcast Litigate. Collaborate, innovate, advocate for disability rights. Welcome to Litigate. In this podcast, we talk about the real challenges faced by persons with intellectual and psychosocial disabilities. Many people with intellectual and psychosocial disabilities face discrimination and barriers to justice across the EU. But legal action can drive real change. That's where strategic litigation comes in. It's not just about winning cases for individuals, but challenging unfair laws to create lasting impact. Through strategic litigation, advocates are working to hold the system accountable. In this podcast, we will explore these legal battles, meet the experts behind them, and uncover how the law can be a tool for justice. Brought to you by Litigate, funded by the Citizens, Equality, Rights and Values Programme of the European Commission.
Hello everybody and welcome to our podcast. Today's discussion is about the role of legal advocacy organizations in strategic litigation. My name is Simona Florescu from Validity Foundation, and I am joined by Georgiana Pascu, Senior Project Manager with Center for Legal Resources. During today's episode, Georgiana and I will have a discussion about how Center for Legal Resources tries to act against the abuses that happen in institutions. Welcome to our podcast. I would like to start by asking you to tell us a little bit about your work at Center for Legal Resources.
So, Center for Legal Resources is a human rights watchdog organization based in Bucharest, Romania. And we are working at the national level on promoting the fundamental rights. I'm responsible to observe how the rights of persons with intellectual and psychosocial disabilities, mainly institutionalized people, are respected by the Romanian government. And in this idea, I will give you some examples from our work. So we started our program in October 2003 with the help of Amnesty International, and then we were in touch with a different organization, but our longer experience and collaboration is with Validity. So in this regard, we selected, trained and contracted a number of independent human rights experts with knowledge of basically human rights, but also with experience on the life of institutionalized people, I mean children, youth, adults and elderly with intellectual and psychosocial disabilities. Some of them are lawyers, others are psychiatrists, psychologists, social workers, and others are self-advocates. And we organized these unannounced monitoring visits in different places like psychiatric hospitals, forensic psychiatric hospitals, orphanages, and residential facilities for adults with disabilities from the public and the private sector. And in order to conduct these visits, we started in 2003 with a letter of support from the Ministry of Labor and one from the Ministry of Health. At that moment, there were no treaties in organizing unannounced monitoring visits. Then we advocate for the ratification of OCAT, Optional Protocol, and the Convention Against Torture, and the implementation of the prerogatives related to national preventive mechanism. Then we advocate for the ratification of CRPD and also mainly of the Article 33 that says that persons with disabilities, self-advocates and human rights organizations should be involved in monitoring the implementation of convention. So far, currently we have different protocols with central authorities. So we have one with the Council of Monitoring for the implementation of CRPD in Romania. It's based on a law that actually helped us to enter in this kind of protocol. We also have a protocol with the General Prosecutor Office related to the implementation to monitor the execution of European Court of Human Rights decisions related to the rights of persons with disabilities. And recently we signed a protocol with the General Inspectorate for Police. And in the past, we used to have also agreements with Ministry of Health and Ministry of Labor.
How often do you go on these monitoring visits?
Depends on the situation. So there might be cases where we have to organize on a daily basis, like if there are any kind of information in the press or in the, I don't know, if we receive a complaint from someone. So there are cases where we can organize a visit from, I don't know, in less than 24 hours. There are others that we can schedule a little bit with our collaborators.
Do you have an overview of how many persons with disabilities are institutionalized at this moment in Romania?
A little bit, and the data are not very accurate. We should have around 17,000 adults with disabilities placed in residential facilities of the state. But there are also others that are institutionalized in social care homes for elderly. And there might be also youth with disabilities in facilities for children, because according to the law, they might stay there till they reach the age of 26. So overall number, I think we can speak about 50,000. In this number, I will include children, adults, youth, and elderly with intellectual and psychosocial disabilities.
You have been doing this work for more than 20 years now. Would it be possible to tell us a little bit about what has changed in the landscape of institutionalization in these 20 years?
Unfortunately, a part of the fact that now we have so many authorities with responsibilities in this field, and a part of the fact that now we have so many professionals that work in this, I don't know if we have less institutionalized persons. I think we don't have so many people with intellectual and psychosocial disabilities in psychiatric chronic wards now, as we used to have 20 years ago. And in terms of number of institutions, all of these so-called reforms in the social services sectors, they used to split, like we have one building with 3 floors, and now you have first floor is one institution, second floor is the second institution, third floor is the third institution, but in the end, people
just one big institution.
Use exactly the same facilities. I think in terms of public speaking, local authorities and central authorities are more aware about the diplomatic language. If you will ask them if their beneficiaries have access to, psychosocial evaluations, all of them will say yes, yes, yes. We are providing them with this sort of services. Something that 20 years ago they will reply no. But in the end, I don't see too much changes within the system.
So you see like a diversification of the language of the authorities, but not so much a change in the lives of persons with disabilities.
I think they know better how to hide now. If 20 years ago they didn't expect anything in terms of criminal complaints or complaints sent to the European Court of Human Rights and then monitoring visits from European Committee on the Prevention of Torture, now they know how to hide any kind of abuses or if they lack anything. And they know how we are doing our work. It's kind of, they expect some of our questions and sometimes they have the answer. And I think what is worst is the fact that despite all of this media advocacy, because in Romania there were plenty of media documentary, I think they learned that nothing can change. No one will respond.
So they're less afraid of the consequences that there might be as a result of your monitoring visit.
The only consequence that might affect them, that might touch them, is the one that they might lose the job, or they might be replaced by some of their colleagues. But in the end, nothing will touch them, and they know this.
You mean that there's no accountability for the institution itself?
And for the director of the institution.
And is it because, in your opinion, there's a vacuum in the law, or is it simply because there's no will of the justice system?
I think it's a mixed situation. First, I think it's the whole situation with stigma and prejudice. It's this idea that social services are providing something for people that are poor, are not so well educated, they have a disability. And already the state is paying a lot of money for these people. So they are not really looking at the staff that is working there.
Maybe you can illustrate this situation with a recent example of a monitoring visit that you carried out in the Mureș County.
Yeah, first we found them like a year ago, in the beginning of 2024. Due to the fact that we organize a number of unannounced monitoring visits in facilities for adults. And, one of the questions that we are asking is, so how these people arrived here? And some of them told us they used to be institutionalized in this and this and these facilities for children. When we first entered in the first facility, we saw 18 children in that kind of small beds for little children. So there were children who started with the age of 3 till 18. They were laid in their beds.
Children that were 18 as well were lying in the beds in the same way that children of 3 years old.
Exactly. All of them with different kind of disabilities, but also with some kind of health issues. They need help to be fed. And there were also others in other facilities in this particular city. So we continue to visit them based on announced and unannounced visits. We also provide them with some help in terms of equipment and access to rehabilitation services.
Did they receive any service in the institution?
On paper, yes. But
and in practice?
In practice, we couldn't observe more than just ladies that feed them, clean and wash them. But in paper, they have like hundreds of papers of individualized rehabilitation plans, health plans, everything. But except for the nurses and orderlies that pick up them from the beds just to feed them, there was nothing. They don't have even, special chairs to put them during the day till we ask someone to provide them.
And did you ask the employees of this center why the difference between the paper and how you saw the children in reality?
They said because they have severe disabilities and this is everything that they need. This kind of mentality of, communist orphanages in Romania, we still have it here. It's
so for
history.
Them, they didn't need anything more, the children.
Anything more, but they were paid for. They have kind of team of psychologists, physical therapists, social worker, nurses, doctors.
Who actually work there?
On
paper.
Yeah.
But in practice, there were just two nurses.
Exactly. But this is a kind of social services complex. So they have 5, they call this center of placement. In fact, there are 5 miserable houses with 3-4 rooms. And in total, in all of these facilities in this particular city, they have 63 children. There are some discussions here on the numbers because some of them reach the age of 18 and they are still there. So we are speaking about numbers between 63 to 73. But according to our evaluation and according to experts that we ask for, all of them can live in the community with help, of course, and with access to rehabilitation services. Reading the court decisions for some of these children, it's easy to see that for some of them in the beginning, the Child Protection Directorate at the county level was forced by the law to place the child in the maternal assistant family. There is a lady that was recruited and it's trained and she's paid to provide services till the child will be placed back in the family or in an adoptive family. So in the beginning, the Child Protection Authority placed them in these foster families. But then after a year, the same authority asked the court, so the judge, to change the measure. So pick up the child from the family, foster family, and placed he or she in an institution, like an orphanage for small children from 3 to 7 years old, which is also an exception at the law in Romania, because it's forbidden to institutionalize children below the age of 7.
And it was the judge who asked for displacement?
It was, the director of the Child Protection Authority asked the judge because this is a court procedure that they should pass through. And it's interesting that reading the court file, you can see very easily that there were no alternatives proposed to the family. You can see there was nothing that was provided to the judge in this respect. I mean, the judge should ask for, could you please give me some information about alternatives or something that you can provide for the child? But more important is that there are some decisions in which the Child Protection Authority is asking the judge to pick up a child from a family like this one, foster family, and place the child in an orphanage due to the fact that the Child Protection Authority has no money to pay for the physical therapy transportation, even if the child is based in the city and the physical therapist is also based in the city, so they cannot afford a bus ticket.
So this lack of resources was used as a reason.
This is one reason. The second one is when the judge is also asked to admit the request to transfer a child from the foster family to an institution below the age of 7. Due to the fact that the labor contract of the foster family stopped at some moment in time. Again, the judge is not asking, or we have no information from the files, so why don't you employ another one? So, I mean, again, just reading these court decisions, it's quite clear for us that it's a kind of understanding at the county level that the Child Protection Authority is doing everything that they can, but children with disabilities should receive all services within the institution.
So this message, you find that this is from the Child Protection Authority, that it's better for children to receive services from the institution.
And from the judge,
which is validated ultimately by the judge. So what have you done in relation to these children since you found them here in these centers?
We start being in touch with the directors of this county directorate for social work and child protection. We help them with access to health rehabilitation services in Bucharest and also with doctors. We contracted 2 physical therapists that came there for, 9 or 10 months and work with children, with equipment for all of them, training on occupational therapy and how to work with children.
Did you see any changes for the children?
For the children, yes, immediately, in less than 2 months. Some of them, it was quite impressive even for doctors here in Bucharest. We didn't expect this. Some of them start to move head, move legs, move, hands. The problem with habilitation for these children is the fact that, there is a gap. For the first, 5 years, you have to work in a different manner with them. This is what doctors told us. This is why parents that have children with disabilities are investing so much in terms of money and time in the first 5-7 years.
5-7 years of the child's life.
Exactly. When you have to work in an intensive manner, like 2-3 physical therapies per day, all kind of sensory rooms, speech therapists, whatever they need it. And the problem with these children is that now there are enough data, at least from our part, to prove that no one worked with them when there was a need. Especially where, I want to underline this because the Child Protection Authority pick up them from the families due to the fact that they need access to health and physical therapy.
So the reason that they were institutionalized in the first place was because the social protection considered that they couldn't receive services in their families, so an institution would be better placed to offer these services.
Exactly.
And you've noticed that they couldn't get the services in the institution.
Which is, something that even the social inspectorate, judge, prosecutors and others could observe. And now there are also medical professionals that also underline this. So if you say that you are working with a child, you have to prove that you work with them. Because this specialist from Mureș County told us that, I remember this, there was this physical therapist that says something like, look at them, you don't see, you can do nothing with them. Which is unbelievable. Because then our physical therapists and also doctors in Bucharest show us, you can do something.
What kind of remedies did you seek for these children?
There are now two different investigations. At the administrative level is the Ministry of Labor investigations and the County Council and the Social Inspectorate that ask all of these places should be shut down. At the criminal level, there is an investigation of the County Police Inspectorate. And we also ask the prosecutors of the special investigation units on combating human trafficking to consider our complaint related to ill treatments, abuse in service, but also exploitation of children with the mean of providing jobs.
So you want to show that the state is directly involved in exploiting these children?
Exactly.
Could you tell us what is happening with the children in the meantime?
As far as we know, children are still in the so-called orphanages. And just a couple of minutes ago, the General Directorate of Social Work and Child Protection from Mureș and also the Agency for Social Inspectorate announced that now they have 5 days to find a solution for each of them, which means 63 solutions at least. And they need to come up with a plan. The General Director of Social Work and Child Protection announced that they will start looking for the families, see if the situation within the family changed. If not, they will look for foster families. If not, they will have to find a maternal assistant. And this is the solutions that they gave to us. In our view, the main problem here is that it's impossible to, start looking and be in touch with 63 families at least, and also look around in the community. This is a kind of community plan. You cannot build this in 5 days for 63 people. And at least based on the files that we read and we got access to, there was nothing, related to the community and to the family. What we asked them was, you should bring some independent experts like doctors, psychologists, social workers, speech therapists, so on, physical therapists to help you evaluate, in parallel the situation of the parents, families, but also the situation of children, because some of them need kind of health intervention. So unfortunately, they are still there, and at our question, if the social work authority directorate will contract any kind of community services like physical therapist and speech therapist and so on, we didn't receive any answer. So we are afraid now what will happen with these children, because there is no coordination from the central level, or we have no idea about this.
So the idea of the authorities is to place children back with the families, but without any therapy
as
or
far,
for the
as
children.
far as they inform us, there is nothing. I don't know how they build a plan without these resources. I think first you need to know, so in each of these villages or small cities, you have to look around what are the services that the family might receive. They also mentioned that tomorrow there will be a meeting with the maternal assistants. These are the ladies that I've told you that they should recruit and employ. But they will meet with people that are already employed by them. And they will ask them to see children, and say if they want or not to bring these children. Which is, it's a kind of showroom. But again, I think each of them should come with a package. You cannot just send the children in the middle of nowhere.
And can you tell us a little bit about the reaction in that community to your report?
Again, as far as we know, there is nothing in terms of at least at the civil society level. But we received some calls from some parents or professionals from the community, more in terms of, show appreciation for our work, because it seems that this was a very well-known problem at the community level. But there is again this kind of, how can I say, they are afraid of showing like they might agree with what's happening, knowing that they might lose the contracts for their beneficiaries. I don't know. This is what we are thinking. But again, it's unbelievable that we have so many central authorities and coalitions and experts in this country, and still the problem is at the local level. They are dealing with the problem on their own, and there is no help in terms of, experts, human resources, money from the central level in order to speed up the process, but also speed up the process with good results for children, not just, create appearance of changing.
And you were telling to me earlier that there has been some reaction from the trade unions and the trade unions who are representing the personnel of these centers.
Yeah, there are some street protests, and also all over the country in different county directorate for social work and child protection. They organize this kind of manifestations against the independent monitoring visits. Also in Mureș, and they received support from the other counties. They were upset because they considered everything is fine there and they are happy with the conditions. This was in the beginning, but then
protests were against the Center for Legal Resources and their monitoring power.
Exactly. Even if our last visit was organized with the Council of Monitoring, and a couple of hours after our visit, there were state bodies, controls, different kind of inspectorates from the local level, but they were from the state level, that closed down different facilities for children because the conditions were not adequate. But in our opinion, again, the situation is the following. After we analyzed the budget execution for 2024, we realized that actually the social services system, this kind of residential system, is more favorable for staff and less favorable for children. Just to give you an example, the state is spending 1.2 more money with meals allocation and holiday vouchers for staff than with the meals and medication for children. So again, I think it's a problem of jobs, salaries, and social benefits, which we are not against, but we are also asking that the state should provide children with the right to live in the community and also with unconditional access to all the services that improve their health.
Center for Legal Resources was at the forefront of one important case at the European Court of Human Rights. That's the case of Valentin Câmpeanu against Romania. That's a case decided several years ago in Strasbourg. And I think there are some parallels between the situation then and the situation now. How did you find Valentin Câmpeanu and what was the complaint about at the European Court of Human Rights?
Yeah, I think the decision is from 2014, so almost 11 years ago, and we are still monitored for the execution by the Committee of Ministers. It's similar, so the case Center for Legal Resources on behalf of Valentin Câmpeanu against Romania was about a young boy, orphan. I found him in February, in the middle of the night. He was abandoned in the courtyard of a forensic psychiatric hospital. His mother abandoned him after he was born. He lived in orphanages and different kinds of institutions till the age of 18. He was infected with HIV and tuberculosis and hepatitis in this kind of facilities. And he also had an intellectual disability. So when he reached the age of 18, the Child Protection Authority had nothing to do with him. He used to have as a legal representative at that moment the president of the county council, but when he reached the age of 18, probably the state considered that now he is capable of taking decision by himself. So the social worker was asked by the Child Protection Authority to find a place for him, to move him in a residential facility for adults. Now, due to the fact that he had HIV also, all the other facilities replied that they have no available space for him. All of them actually were overcrowded, to be honest. They also asked the Forensic Psychiatric Hospital, Poiana Mare, if they have any available place for him, and they also reply no, but there is also no, he is a social case. There is no condition for him to be in a forensic psychiatric hospital. So in the end, it seems that in one of the very small city close to Craiova, some local authority opened a medical social unit, and they just sent him there without medication for HIV, and without any kind of accommodation. When he arrived there, he felt like, lost. He couldn't speak, and the staff was unable to communicate with him. They put him in a car, arrived at the emergency room at the same psychiatric hospital from Poiana Mare. Here, the psychiatrist told them there is no way for him to stay here, and gave him some light psychiatric medication. And again, he was, lost in that facility in Calafat, and they put him in the car, and then they actually abandoned him in the courtyard of this psychiatric hospital. So when I found him, he was closed in a room, almost naked. It was really cold, it was February. At that moment, the Council of Europe Committee for the Prevention of Torture wrote that almost 100 people died of starvation and hypothermia in that hospital in less than a year. And at the moment when I arrived, I counted 17 deaths in that particular day. So there was no way for him to survive there. He was also visited by the director of the medical assistance departments from the Ministry of Health from Bucharest, which is currently the Ministry of Health. And when the medical staff asked him what can we do because he was actually closed in order not to infect anyone from there, and no one wanted to touch him because he had HIV. So I asked them, please call an emergency ambulance, bring him to Craiova main hospital because he doesn't look well. But then, it was midnight, I came back to Bucharest, and in the morning they told me that actually he died, 1 or 2 hours after I left the hospital. So we asked the prosecutors to start the investigations regarding his death, but also the deaths of the others. What happened was this lack of quality. So the prosecutor considered at that moment, and the judges, that the Center for Legal Resources has no legal standing. Now the problem is that there was no one that should represent him. So this is why we arrive at the European Court of Human Rights that recognize our legal standing on behalf of Valentin Câmpianu. And now we also have legal standing on behalf of others, but only when we organize an unannounced monitoring visit and when we are requesting legal standing to the prosecutor.
So the effect of the judgment of the European Court is also that now you can access these institutions, not actually that you can access the institutions, but you can file criminal complaints.
Exactly.
And represent these clients before the Romanian prosecution authorities
but
and
in
courts.
In this case, in Mureș, the situation is a little bit different because we are speaking about minors, so they are children. Here they have legal representative, but in our opinion, it's a conflict of interest because the legal representative is the president of the county council for 40 of them, and for the other 30 is the director of the child protection directorate.
And they are also, your criminal complaint is targeting this directorate, right? The child protection.
Exactly, but even a part of this, even if there would be no criminal complaint and no complaint within any kind of court, the problem is that you as a director, you are the one that can pick up a child from a family. Then you ask the court on behalf of this child to admit the request to receive services, within the family or a foster family or within an institution, and also the court will appoint you as a legal representative. But you are also the legal representative of the institution. You are the one that will allocate money, staff. So you cannot be the mother and the chief of the institution in the same time.
So the director has attributions also with respect to these centers.
He's also the main employer and the one that allocates money.
The director is employing the staff of the institution.
Exactly.
And theoretically should also look after the best interest of the child.
And theoretically and legally speaking, it's also the one in charge to employ foster families.
So the director is the one having all the attributions in relation to all the actors involved with children.
Exactly.
And this is the legal requirement in Romania.
Exactly.
Are you mentioning this conflict of interest also in your criminal
Yes.
complaint?
Yes. Now I think what we should do, but probably we should ask the guardianship authority and the civil court to see this conflict of interest, particularly in this case, and ask for special measures. You know, the situation in Romania is like this. You will protect, you as a director and main employer, you will protect the interests of your staff. You cannot be
objective and
Exactly.
impartial. And coming back to Valentin Câmpeanu, the European Court of Human Rights found then that you as an organization had legal standing to represent Valentin in this case before the European Court of Human Rights. They also found a violation of the right to life. And you told me earlier that you see some parallels between the situation of Valentin Câmpeanu and the situation now in terms of allocation of funding and the reaction to your intervention.
It's related to the right to access services in the community and to have family in the community. Because as far as you will continue to allocate 80% of your budget just for salaries within offices and institutions, there is no way that you will have money for habilitation, health, educational, other services for children, not even within the institution. Because when you spend 80% of your budget just for salaries, it's unbelievable.
Is there a difference in terms of budget allocation now as opposed to Valentin Câmpeanu situation in 2004?
I don't remember very well, but at that moment the discussion was about allocation from the center, because I think in 2004 the center still controlled the budget allocation at the local level. Now they just send the money to the county council. President of the county council will decide how we will spend the money. The law is saying that you should allocate a maximum of 80%, but you can allocate less.
And do you have any view on what can be done to actually ensure that the money available is directed primarily to community-based services and not to residential services?
I think it's a question of accountability and transparency, because if they will have like a transparent budget, if they will show the execution of the budget monthly for each, of the facility where the children are placed. But again, how can you do this when the director of the county directorate is also the parent? It's almost impossible. And no, they are not transparent at all.
And are you engaged at any level with other authorities to advocate for the changing of the laws in this sense?
Exactly. What we are looking now is to change the law on the rights of the children. In this respect, like the legal representative of authority should be different than the legal representative of children. I was in a meeting yesterday at the Ministry of Labor. There were 20 representatives from the ministry level, like State Secretary, the Minister, so on. And I asked them if there is any evaluation on how the money are spent by the county councils, and no one knows. There are no information about this. So it seems that no one actually is monitoring how the county council is spending the money.
Do you have any positive example in Romania of community-based services that would align to what you're saying?
There are 3 that I can mention because they are different. So 2 of them are working mainly with adults with intellectual disabilities. So they help them to live in the community. So they enter into contracts with county council or with Directorate of Social Work and Child Protections. So they will meet and then they will help them to live in the community, pay the rent, help them to do all that kind of medical investigations that they need, and then to work with a psychologist, vocational counselor, and social worker to be included in the community. And now I'm speaking about PROACT support and UNLOC. PROACT they are from Bucharest, and UNLOC from Timișoara. But there is also another example from Sibiu. Tonal Association. They are working with adults with severe mental health problems, and they have program that is financed by their own, so they don't ask money from the county level, and they are supporting adults to live on their own in their houses, and they are using art in order to help them with therapy, but also provide something for the community, sell very nice objects for money for them. And also they show that with this support within the community, they drop the involuntary admission within the psychiatric hospitals.
Thank you very much, Georgiana. Thank you for joining us at this podcast.
Thank you for tuning in. We hope you'll join us again next time as we continue to advocate, collaborate, and innovate for disability rights. We also would like to thank all our speakers for sharing their experiences with us and for allowing us to learn from and build on them. This podcast was brought to you by the Litigate project.